Hi, everyone. I'm Ray Richmond, and I'm welcoming Nicholas Stoller and Francesca Delbanco from the Apple TV Plus comedy series Platonic to our TV showrunners Meet the Experts panel. It stars Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne in the story of former childhood best friends who reconnect as adults and try to get past the rift that led to their falling out. So, Francesca and Nicholas, tell me where the idea for the Platonic storyline came from. I'm guessing there has to be a personal story and a fascinating anecdote or two.
What a good guess. The idea really came from the fact that I was observing in my own life the fact that I had had many friends who were guys, of course, many friends who were girls as a person, as a teenager, as someone in her 20s, as someone in her late 20s, and that at a certain moment in my life, basically when Nick and I got married and my friends started getting married, those friendships kind of changed a little bit. And suddenly I was friends with all of my guy friends' wives, and Nick was friends with all of my guy friends. And that something was happening in my life that was kind of like a gender division, sort of akin to what happens with little kids when, kindergartners all play together and suddenly by like fourth grade, boys and girls never speak to each other again. And that there was something strange about it that had been kind of mysterious but intense, and that I no longer like went out to dinner with my guy friends, but I would go out to dinner with their wives, all of whom I love, by the way. But it just was suddenly like a rigidity and a hardening in separation of the genders that I hadn't anticipated in my own life, and it happened kind of silently and suddenly caught up with me. And I went a couple of guy friends and I who had a tradition of going to Las Vegas when we were in our 20s and would meet from different corners of the country where we lived. We decided on the 20th anniversary of our first trip to do it again. And it was me and a couple of guys. And when I went away on that trip, and Nick was at home with our children that weekend, he always said that people were like, "Where's Francesca?" And she was like, "Oh, she's in Vegas with some guys." And it was as if the craziest thing in the world had happened. Like, she's in Vegas with some guys. And it was just a totally innocuous trip, like a kind of friend reunion, the way women and have with women and men have with men all the time, a guy's weekend or a girl's weekend. But there was something so transgressive about it being like men and women together. And we thought that it would be fun to try to excavate that in a show.
Do you think it gets more complicated for men and women to have a non-sexual relationship as they start getting married and having kids, or less?
I think it becomes more complicated. It just everything becomes, I mean, as Francesca said, everything becomes more rigid. I mean, I would notice it in small ways too, like on the schoolyard, if you look at the schoolyard, it's not just the kids that are like separated by gender. The like dads are talking to dads and the like moms are talking to moms. It's like like everything gets separated. And so I think like, and also everyone's lives get busier and stuff, but I think like, but yeah, I think it does get more complex, like and more rigid once marriage happens and everyone couples up.
Here's my own anecdote. I was interviewing Larry King probably 25 years ago. Somehow the subject of platonic relationships came up, and Larry revealed to me the following: I appreciate that some men can have a friendship with a woman that doesn't involve sex, but not me. I can't do it. And I just thought, oh my God, you schmo. How incredibly sad. Um, you know,
Well, the thing that's kind of interesting is that I feel that I am a feminist and I am enlightened and I work in a co-ed environment and I live my life that way. And yet somehow, oftentimes if I'm at a dinner party or if I'm at a party, I kind of look around and I know all of the people who are there feel the same way too. But for some reason, the men are all sitting on the couch talking about X, Y, or Z, and the women are all in some different huddle. And I don't really know why. And that was really what we wanted to.
And the conversations,
absolutely.
when you mix it up, often become more interesting because it's like, it's just like almost always, and so it's a weird thing that our society sorts itself out that way, and most, I think. I don't think just
Absolutely.
regardless of what your personal political opinions are, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Let's talk about your series in particular, because this is, after all, why we're here. How did you land Seth and Rose to star, and how did you know, and did you know going in that they'd have this kind of chemistry, which is clearly there?
Yeah, I mean, so I directed Neighbors and Neighbors 2 and worked with Rose. I've worked with Rose starting on Get Him to the Greek, which I directed, wrote. And so she's just a comedy genius. And she and Seth, and I'm using that like not in the Hollywood way. She is literally a comedy. She's like I say she's like a female Peter Sellers. She can literally do anything. So she is so funny, and and then she and Seth had amazing chemistry in both those movies. They really like it's that rare thing where they just have great chemistry that the great kind of comedy duos often have. So from the beginning, as we were developing this, we thought we wanted to approach Rose for the part of Sylvia, and then when she agreed to do it, we asked her who she wanted to do it with, and she said Seth. And at the time, I wasn't sure if Seth was interested in TV. He hadn't done it really yet. And we approached him, and when when it was us and Rose, he was very quickly like, yeah, I'll do it. So it was a very quick thing. And then we pitched it and set it up at Apple, and it all went very quickly. And then the pandemic hit.
And suddenly it went very slowly.
And then it went very slowly.
I appreciate the fact that you guys crafted a comedy that concentrates on actually being funny, when so much of comedy, particularly in the streaming world, seems to focus on making the audience sometimes more uncomfortable rather than amused. The lines have really blurred. Is this something either or both of you feel really strongly about?
Yeah, I think that it needs to be shaken up, and I think we need to call a half-hour drama a half-hour drama. It's not a comedy, and that's fine, and it's great, and I think it's a great way to tell a story. But there are many shows that are excellent that are called comedies that are fully not comedies. And comedy is
also, that's not even really what they're interested in trying to do.
No, it's not even interested. Yeah, which is fine.
Tell your story however you want to tell your story.
But if you are trying, but it is very, very hard to make people laugh out loud. It's like, and you have to tell, in order to do it, you have to tell a dramatic story. The story has to make sense. It has to be relatable. It has to be honest. And I think that as shows that are not comedies take the spotlight away from shows that are, it kind of denigrates the art form of comedy in a weird way. There are many more important things in the world than this subject, but it is something, as someone who loves comedy and thinks it's really the best way, or obviously I'm going to think it's the best way to tell a story, an honest story. It can be a little bit not dispiriting, but just, yeah.
And doing comedy well, it seems, is just tougher than drama. I guess it's always been that way.
I mean, of course, comedy writers will say that. I mean, I'm not sure drama writers feel that way, but it is really hard because you need to create characters who are real and stories that are real, and have you believe and invest in those relationships exactly as much in the same way as you do in a drama. And then you need to have it also be funny. So there's just like an extra onus. And it's really challenging. And, that's the fun of being in a writer's room on a comedy, is you got to have people who are as good. You need all of those parts.
I mean, I won't name them, but I have peers who have directed many big comedies and then went on to do dramas. And I asked them which is harder, and they're like, oh, 100% comedies, 100%. So it's like, it's not, so yeah, it's just because you have to tell a real, as what you just said,
And you have to make people laugh.
Yeah.
How much did you encourage your writers to share their own platonic relationship experience and incorporate it into their scripts?
Fully, absolutely. I mean, that is the whole joy of doing it and of writing it and of all being together and sharing it and trying to everyone solve this puzzle based on the evidence of their own lives and their own experiences. For sure. I think that the experience of our staff is really in the stories in a good way.
I'll say one other thing, sorry about the comedy drama thing, is my favorite dramas are often really, really funny. So it gets muddled that way too. Like I think about The Sopranos, which is, probably the greatest show ever made, and it's hysterical. So it's like, so it gets, it all gets confusing at a certain moment.
Absolutely. Actually, we're going to wrap things there. All 10 episodes of Platonic are streaming on Apple TV+. Nicholas Stoller and Francesca Delbanco, best of luck to you this Emmy season, and thanks for joining us at Gold Derby.
Thank you so much for having us. What a treat.
Yeah, thanks.